Greetings, traveler. It's not often we get visitors this far up the mountainside, but I'm sure Vachlokmir is pleased to have the company. If Vachlokmir were hostile, I'm sure we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd say the same logic applies to your fear of the dragons. Yes, I think it means fond of the spring sky or something. He only said it once, and he tends to mumble. He's very shy. To the north, in the forest of Falkreath, I was tracking a man with hoofprints as big as the white stag of legend. I meandered through the forest, my eyes fixated on the dirt, when I found the track stamped over by a much larger print. As I ran my fingers across the edges, a long shadow crept over my body, and it wasn't until then that I took my eyes off the ground. I shrieked so loud that the birds and the cicadas fled from the trees. Suddenly, I was face to face with an actual dragon. Once I was all out of screams and all out of breath, I realized I was still alive. That's when I noticed the arrow lodged into his wing. He doesn't like it when I say so, but Vachlokmir is very sensitive. The wound was minor, but I knew he needed my help. So I reached for an old hunter's salve I had in my satchel, and I decided to heal him. It kindles my heart to know that there are those who judge not by fear and rumor, but by truth and honor. Vachlokmir did no more than grunt when I took my hands into his scales and climbed up his great back. I wish it weren't so, but folk are scared. And scaring, when it comes to fear, everyone's merchant and everyone's spy. The host fire threats and paces, afraid the dragon will swoop down and eat her children or set fire to her home. City guardsmen, trains in the barracks, worried all his boasts of heroism will melt away under the heat of a dragon's flame. The farmer picks his crops before they are ripe, and the hunter starves the forest of rabbits and deer. Same goes for blacksmiths, lumberjacks, milk and tavern maids. Every bored, middle-aged, drunken soul who thought they had nothing to live for. Now, all of a sudden, they have something to lose. So entire towns live in fear, leaping to panic every time a cloud drifts over the sun. It's very sad. If only they'd lie down their fear and open their hearts, they'd see that the dragon is capable of mercy and a creature of kindness. That's why it's very important that we learn new language. We can't understand them if we can communicate. Alright then. I maneuvered his spine, grabbing fangs of rock that jutted from his skin. The arrow was right there, near the crook where his body met his wing. I clutched the arrow by the fletchings, yanking it out with all my strength. Too much strength. The force of it made me lose my balance. I would have fell to the ground and croaked my skull if Vahloknir didn't swivel his head around to catch me. Even after I applied the poultice and the healing spell, Vahloknir was in no condition to fly. Mentally, anyway. And it wasn't long before some of the other hunter folk came stumbling through in search of prey. There were 2 of them, dressed in scale armor, with bright silver coins of light shining off their chest plates. When I heard their voices laughing through the trees, I dove into the thickest of grass and lay in wait, my dagger clenched between my teeth. The hunters, meanwhile, drew their weapons, their eyes mesmerized by the great beast that lay wounded before them. Most would have fled at the sight of Vahloknir, but when the dragon covered at the sight of them, it only gave them courage. A hunter seeks every advantage, which is why he traps animals he aims to kill. With these folk, sought to murder, not to hunt. When the hunters came, Vahloknir curled up his head and tail, hiding under the canopy of wings. He was so teeny. The hunters laughed as they split up to flank him. Slaying a dragon was great prestige. Nobody would ever believe it wasn't. I pulled the dagger from my teeth and watched as the shorter one circled toward me. I could practically smell the stink hopping of his force. I rose to a crouch and raised my arms to his throat. When my nose betrayed me, I sneezed. Both hunters stood toward me, but I managed to get the short one. All I felt was the rush and the hot spray of blood trickling down my leg. My body was on fire, but I was scared. Perhaps Vahloknir sensed this, because as the other hunter charged, he unfurled his wings and let out a roar. The sky shook and the earth cracked, and the man flicked like no man I've ever seen. But I reckoned he'd be back, maybe with the city guard. We had to hide, although the hardest part was convincing Vahloknir I could still fly. You're very kind, adventurer. Perhaps you would like to stay for dinner? Vahloknir is getting quite good at hunting deer. Really? Well, if you're that curious, I'll gladly tell you my story. I was raised in a community of hunters. My mother taught me to track, hunt, and skin, and my father taught me how to craft cages and traps. He was so proud when I fashioned my first bear trap. He showed it to a neighboring hunter who offered to make a good use of it. A group of hunters had found a bear alcove near the outcroppings by Evergreen Grove. That day, 4 of them left, but only 3 returned. One of them spit at my father as he passed him, then threw my manglet trap to the ground. One of the bears had managed to break free from its jaws. 2 of the hunters blamed my father, and I blamed myself. But one of them, a Nordman with a low brow and sad eyes, told me the truth of it. The bear was a mother, driven by her need to protect her cubs. He said not even the fangs of a dragon would have held me. He tossed my hair and gave me a smile more black than white, but it brightened my day all the same. father's daughters and sons. And our right to hunt is not any more valid than their right to live. Further, is that deer alive? For a second I thought I heard it grumble. Or was that my stomach? That would be very unladylike.
Greetings, fellow traveller. I apologize for my singing. I didn't realize I had an audience. I sometimes fashion myself a bard or a sword singer of legend. It's more ominous than beautiful. But I suppose its melody won't lack the suitors. Maybe not now, but in time. Hardly. In my time with the wolves, I did a lot of small favors. Pest control, muscle jobs, or hunting down petty thieves. As someone who spent half her life in the slums and the other half tracking and hunting forest game, this work came easy. Unfortunately, raiding caves, Draugr crypts, ghost ships and spider dens are another matter entirely. True, but there are a certain type of skill set you need to survive as an adventurer. You need to know which mushrooms are food and which ones are poison. You have to learn how to sleep on a bed of rock and with one eye open. And, as a hunter, you have to get used to the idea of being prey. The worst part is, you might spend a week in some crypt and have no treasure to show for it. So you also have to learn to handle disappointment. Yet it's not the size of a cave that worries me, but what lives inside it, particularly the caves marked by the fallen. The Falmer marked the entrance to their caves with a sculpture of painted bones. I'm repulsed by it, but I don't think I could venture into a cave if I wasn't sure those things weren't looming beneath, the markings held. I grew up in a poor village outside of Whiterun. It was very small but full of children and as such full of life. They said when we played in the yard, the peals of laughter rang all the way to Dragon's Reach. Yet, when I think about that village, I can never hear it. I listen for it, train my ears toward the darkness. But what comes out isn't laughter. There were screams that night. So many screams. The Falmer took my mother, they took my father. They tried to take me. Before she took me in, my mother used to light a single sconce by my bed to ward off the dark. I remember the way the light wrapped around its face, how it stood there, tracing its mouth with its tongue. I'm sorry. No more talk about the Falmer. They're foul creatures, and if I never see another, it will be too soon.
No, I imagine it isn't. Few have ever heard it, and even fewer understand what it's about. Some say it's a quiet song of glory, while others will tell you it tells the loudest of tragedies. You see, to be a companion, to be part of the circle, one must give up a piece of their humanity. It was not something I was willing to give. So I left my shield brothers and sisters and set out on my own. I figured I needed time to myself, and I've grown weary of saying goodbye. True, there are many who share your beliefs, but I would hesitate to call it a gift. I can't imagine how often Ayla has to put the fur from her nose just so she can breathe.
Resent is probably too strong of a word. My time with the wolves was disappointing, but only because I had a false impression of who they were. As a child, I thought they could protect me. As a woman, I thought they would groom me. It was naive to think so. Wolves may run in packs, but there's a hierarchy, and a competitive one. Whatever skill or strength I gained, I earned on my own. No. And it has nothing to do with the circle. That's why I left, but there's a different reason why I won't return. When I was a child, I thought of nothing else but joining the fabled companions. Not out of some desire to be a hero, but because I believed there was no safer place to live than inside the great niche hall of Yvaska. I remember kneeling on the steps, drenched in wet packs, the clouds practically screaming the rain. It must have looked so pitiful, begging Steel to take me in. Yet it wasn't pity he gave me, but scorn. Who do you think we are, girl? He said. Yvaska is not an orphanage. And he was right. All my life I'd sought the protection of others, when I should have been learning to protect myself. True, there are many times when I have relied on the strength of others. And each time it has only served to hinder my own development. I once travelled with a companion. You might even call him a friend. For years I would rely on him for food, for warmth, and for someone to talk to. But what if the day came when I couldn't summon his aid? And then what would become of me? No, that wasn't going to be my fate. The wolves will recruit any fighter who is strong and virtuous, for there are few in this world who are both. My chance came about 7 summers ago, when the city held a tournament to celebrate the birth of the Jarl's son. I was a girl not even flowered, and the crowd behind me laughed and jeered when I requested to enter my name on the archers list. But all went silent when Yule and Greymane vouched for me, and paid for my entrance with a dagger from the Skyforge. From his view atop the Skyforge, he'd seen me grow from a child who could barely knock an arrow to one who could bullseye a blade. He watched me train outside Yavaska day and night, in the chills of winter and the rains of spring, so that I could one day earn my way inside. And on that day, there was not an archer in Whiterun whose aim was more true. Not Aethys or Irela, not even Ayla the Huntress would best me. I was fortunate. Ayla's a more skillful archer than I, but on that day she was not at her best, and I was never better. Nothing. Just the usual trinket surrounded by corpses, blood and bones. The bandit corpse over there is still fresh. Looks like I arrived here before the wolves could desecrate it. The face on that one looked familiar. I almost thought it was someone I knew. A friend's, cousin's, uncle or something. What does that make us? Strangers. But even the death of a stranger seems like something worth mourning. You're welcome to. It's not something you want to make a habit out of doing, though. I mean, if I could, I would give them all proper burials. But there isn't enough time in this lifetime and the next. All right then.
Well met, traveler. Do you come to watch the dance of bones? To pay homage? Or to learn the craft? I certainly hope not. These are works of art. What you see before you is art in its purest form. Unbound by the conventions of society, free to show the naked truth. Well said, traveler. I didn't expect to meet an artist of your caliber here in the wilderness. Necromancer? I'll forgive your crude mistake. After all, many fail to see the beauty in that which is soiled. I do not practice the art of necromancy. I practice necromantic art. The distinction is rather important. I use the tools of conjuration to make art pieces that reflect the human condition, the struggles of man, his joy, his sadness, his frailty. His clothes are stripped, his bones bared for all to see. Yet even an artist cannot fully understand a work through a single set of eyes. Tell me, stranger, how does this piece make you feel? Like most, you fail to consider whether the undead are people. Your instincts tell you they are an imminent threat. My skeletons, however, are docile. Innocents. Brothers in arms, childhood friends, husband and wife. They were once these things. But what are they now? What determines whether one is living or dead? Is it? Can a soul exist on its own? The black soul gem fragments on this altar once contained a human soul. If that is the true essence of man, should that not be more offensive than the skeletons? I trained at the College of Winterhold, where necromancy is legal and accepted, but only for research and study. My views regarding the artistic potential of the undead were not readily embraced. The parting was mutual, but I'll say this. Contrary to what some may tell you, I have no interest in using the dead as a weapon. If we truly wish to understand the nature of our existence, we must bring death to life and life to death, so the two may define the void between. Only the presence of my colleagues, so many brilliant minds, each a treasure trove of the profound. Some, like Master Gester, would challenge your mind with hypotheticals, questions that had no answer. Very well. Consider the following. In your travels, you come across a man living in an abandoned house. There is evidence that he is a deplorable man, a murderer, a rapist, a thief. However, he is also a brilliant alchemist. He is on the verge of a breakthrough potion that will cure any disease. This is important, as a new plague is spreading across the land. However, if the man is allowed to sell the potion, he will become very powerful and very rich. Many will suffer at his hand. What do you do? Give me an answer, traveler, and learn more about yourself. And can you stand by and watch as his perversions and power increases? At least if you were to leave him be, you would be spared of the horror. Appreciation takes many forms. The most spiteful criticism is usually reserved for the most thought-provoking of art. So, I take their criticisms as a compliment. The more people view an art piece, the more interpretations are derived from it. Like a flower to the sun, the art flourishes when the light of the people is cast upon it. A larger audience would negatively influence my work. If I feared the guard, I might use straw men in lieu of skeletons. It did not take long for me to realize how the integrity of my art would be sacrificed. My art may anger you, yet that may well be its intent.
here. I was on my way north to the icy tundra. It's quite vast, quite icy, and extremely dull, which is precisely why I visited. Some people look at a blank portrait and see only emptiness. I see an opportunity to paint. Imagine a vast field of pure white, soft as a pillow wrapped in a cloud. From a distance, you might think it's snow. Yet, when you come to the lip of its feathery shore and run your fingers through crowns of ivory, you'll know you have arrived in Whiterun. Home of Tamriel's most beautiful and profitable tundra cotton field. Zora's Field, as it's known to the locals. I certainly hope so. It is called tundra cotton, otherwise they should have changed the name. Right behind you.